guys, it's Christy. Welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be making a card with this brand new Lawn Fawn Meow You Doing stamp set, as well as the Chamel Little by Little 6x6 paper pad. And I'm actually going to be making a masculine birthday card today. This is for my little guy. He's turning 12 today and he loves cats. So I'm jumping right in with my Copic coloring, and I'm starting with E50 and E51. I'm taking that E51 and I'm just doing some light shading all around the cat's body, and then I'm going to blend out with that E50, and I'm going to leave a lot of white space so that he's really light. I wanted to make a calico cat today just for something different. So I drew a little triangle on his forehead and under his chin just to give him some personality, and now I'm taking that R20 and I'm giving him a little pink nose and some rosy cheeks, and then I'm going to go back with my E50 and just blend out that rosy cheeks so that it's not quite so bright. I'm going to take my E17 and my E47 to make my little calico spots on my kitty. So I'm just kind of drawing in some little shapes here, trying to make sure that they're not perfectly round, or just kind of looking a little more natural how the spots on a calico cat would be. And I'm not going to blend out these colors at all. I want them to just remain that shade, that color. So I'm just adding them here and there and leaving them as they are, since the shading is already on his body with the E50 and the E51. I decided to give him one brown ear with the E47, and then I'll just go back to my R20 and just color in those little ears so they have the little inside portion shaded, and then I'll just blend out the edge of that with that E50 again so it has a natural transition. For the cat bed, I'm using BG11, BG13, and BG15. And I'm starting with that BG15, and I'm just doing some shading along the outside edges, putting my darkest color there so that it'll have that rounded appearance. Then I'm going to take that BG13 and just blend that out a bit, carrying that color into the center, but leaving a little bit of a highlight for that BG11. I'll just go ahead and fill that in. And my highlight on the bottom portion got a little bit off center. It's a little tricky for me not to turn the paper being left-handed to color properly, but so I just went back with the BG13 and recolored that, added a little more BG15, just kind of reshaded the whole thing to make sure that the highlight ended up in the center portion where I wanted it to be. Just back with the BG13 and then finishing with that BG11. And I'm not being super careful not to color the inside. I'm actually going to paper piece that in a little bit. But it's just natural habit to try not to color out of the lines for me. But if it went in the center, I didn't really care. So for the ball of yarn, I'm using R29, R39, and R59. And I'm just going to shade it with the darkest at the bottom. I thought that would be way too difficult to try to shade the individual strands. So I just put that R59 at the bottom, then blended out with the R39 and left the R29 for the top. And then I wanted to add a little bit of color to this little string that goes off of it, but it didn't work out. My stroke was way too thick, so I'm just going to re-stamp that later. I have kind of a funny story to share about my little guy. Earlier this week, he came home from school on the bus, and he rides a different bus than his brothers. They go to a different school than he does, so he gets home a little bit later than they do. And they were already outside playing basketball because it was a beautiful day, and he joined them without coming in the house. So when he finally came in after they were done, I went to hug him as I always do when he walks in the door. And I realized to my absolute horror that he was stinky. I'm talking major BO. And I don't say this to tease him, but this was the first time that I had ever smelled him like that. He has always been my little sweet-smelling baby boy, and it was just such a shock to me. And I had the harsh realization that all of my children are now teens and preteens, and it was just it was kind of a crushing moment for me. I don't know if you guys have been through the same thing yet or not, but it's just startling to realize how quickly they grow up. I mean, on the one hand, I'm so proud of the men that they're turning out to be, but on the other, I just wish I could keep them little forever. But getting back to our coloring, now I'm taking the E17 and just coloring in the food. That's the same color I used on the Calico Cat. And then I'm going to take the E19 and just dot in a little bit of color. I also used the B37 and 34 for the label on my can, and the W3 and W1 for the mouse and the rest of the tin can. And then you just saw me take that R29 for my candle. I'm using the Y17 for the back of my fish and realized that was a little too dark, so I decided to add in a little bit of Y13. I also colored my little party hat with those two shades, but I didn't like how it turned out, so I'm going to restamp that as well. And I decided to go back to several of the colors I had used previously so that I could pull those all together on the little hat. So I used the R29 for the bottom stripe, the Y17 for the next stripe, the B15 for the third stripe, and then I just finished with that B37. And I thought that turned out much better. So now I'm just going to grab my paper pad and I'm going to flip to the page that I want to use for the inside of my cat bed. And I'm just going to grab that stamp and I'm going to ink that up with some more Memento Tuxedo Black. And I'll just stamp that down in the corner there, and then I can grab my scissors and trim that out. Before I fussy cut that out, I just want to add a bit of shading so it doesn't look quite so flat and matches the rest of the images. So I'm just taking that BG11 and adding a little shadow right around the edge. And then I'll blend that just a bit with the BG10. And sorry, I didn't realize that cap was off camera. And then I'll just grab my Cutter Bee scissors and I'm just going to carefully cut that out. So the way that I like to fussy cut is I cut right on the black line, so I don't cut to the left or the right of the black line, but directly through the center of it. And I keep my scissors pointed straight away from my body and just turn the paper, and that makes it much easier to get a smooth cut so that you don't have any little jagged edges where they shouldn't be. And then I just grab my Memento dual tip marker, which is the same ink as it was stamped in, and I just line the edges of the image so that it covers up the white core of the paper, and that will make the black lines of the two pieces line up seamlessly. I'm going to take some Tombow Mono Multi Glue and I'll squirt a little bit onto there, and then I'm just going to use the tip of the nozzle to spread that around, and then I'll just carefully line that up till I have it right where I need it to be, and then I can just set that aside to dry. There's a better look at it. For my focal panel, I've die cut another piece of pattern paper with the MFT Wonky Stitch Rectangle die, and then I also just die cut a small piece of gray cardstock, and that's going to serve as my floor. So I'll just glue that right onto the bottom of that piece of pattern paper. The cat bed is going to go right in the center of that. I'm just gluing that flat to the card with a little more Tombow Mono, and the kitty cat is going to sit right inside the cat bed. And he gets to wear the little birthday hat. I'll pop up the little can of cat food with the candle in it with some Scotch 3M foam tape. And I'm going to add the little ball of yarn with some foam tape as well. And I'll just tuck the little string behind with some more Tombow Mono. And I also popped up the little catnip mouse just to add some more dimension to our scene. I've added my card base inside my Misty, and I'm using some Lawn Fawn Blue Jay ink to stamp out my sentiment, which says Happy Birthday. And that didn't stamp out completely perfect, so I'm just going to ink that up a second time and press that down, and I was much happier with that one. And that card base, by the way, is a piece of MFT's Cornflower cardstock. And that is scored and folded to a standard portrait style card, so it's 4¼ wide by 5½ tall. I'm adding some Tombow Mono to the back of my piece of pattern paper here, and I'm just going to press that into place on my card base. I'm going to add a small little strip of red cardstock to the top of that, and I'm going to just tuck that inside the top edge. And I'm just working quickly while that glue is still wet. For the bottom piece, I've left that a little bit longer, and I've die cut that with one of the Lawn Fawn stitch border dies. There's 4 in that set, and I'm using the one with the little cross stitch pattern. And I'm just going to add a little bit of glue to that, and then I will tuck that under the bottom piece right there. I can just lift that up and line that up right where I want it, and then press that into place. Then I'll just grab my focal panel and my roll of Scotch 3M foam tape, and I'll add a couple pieces to the back of that. And I ended up having to tear off an extra one and just trim that down in half to squeeze it in there because I wanted it to be really well supported. And then I can just peel off those backer sheets, and I'll line that up on the front of my card. And once I have it right where I want it, I'll just press that down. So I've put my card back in my MISTI to work on the inside, and I'm stamping out a couple additional images as well as another sentiment with the Lawn Fawn Deep Sea ink. And I had that magnet too close to my sentiment, so I'm inking that up a second time. And then the word day was still a little bit lighter because that's where the magnet had been. So I'll just ink up just that portion and press that down a third time. And that gave me a perfect sentiment. So I can go ahead and pull that out. And now I'm taking just that string, and I want to stamp that 2 more times just so it looks like they're kind of flying off into the air to make it a little more festive. So my tips for making masculine cards, especially for young boys, would be to use bright primary colors, simple shapes, in this case my theme was circles, and either no or very minimal embellishments. I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and I think my little guy is really going to love it. Here's a couple extra videos you may also enjoy, and you can always click on my photo to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I hope you all have an amazing day, and I wish my son a very happy birthday. Bye-bye.